That was a hell of an ending. I loved it. That's I'm just gonna get on here immediately and just be like, I loved it. Um, that's my gut reaction uh, to the ending.
Well, we've talked about it a bunch. Our faith in HBO series. Uh, it's one of those ones that, I mean, I'm glad it got a second season, but had it not, I still would have been happy. It was a very good story. It kind of tied up everything. I think they did a great job with it. I quite enjoyed it.
And that's so true. That the way this season ended. Obviously it's setting up for a second season. It's laying all the pieces out. But had we not gotten a second season, there's still enough closure, and it wrapped up all the major storylines in a reasonable way. Yeah, it leaves us a little here and there, and we'll talk about that in a few moments. But it wrapped up everything that was important.
Yeah, I didn't. The main stories and everything, I don't feel like they left anything out. They even gave us a little tidbit to kind of start what next season could be, or maybe not. It could just be, them talking about what their next case is. But I liked how they left it open for once they got greenlit, they left it open, but they closed up all of this case.
Yeah.
I didn't have any question marks as far as Charlie.
No, no. Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer. And as you hear, we're talking the season finale of Perry Mason. If you're new to the channel, welcome. You can go back and listen to, the things we discussed in the past videos. Also, check out the Kurt Russell-a-thon. It's running right now. We have 2 videos up, Soldier and Stargate. There's some audio issues with the Stargate review, but it's good. Check it out. Play a game. Guess what the sounds are in the background. I don't know actually.
Kirk
But
had a hammer. I was probably doing dishes. I don't know.
but and there's a lot more um, Russell reviews coming. But yeah, we appreciate all you who've been with us, who've been putting comments, upvoting the videos. Continue the conversation. And like we've been saying, we're not we're doing Lovecraft Country. So if you tune in Sunday nights to see what we have to say about Perry Mason, join us starting next week for Lovecraft Country. Same time, same place. I'm excited for it. Yeah.
I was gonna same time, same place, same channel.
Yeah. The only difference will be Larry will be joining us for Lovecraft Country. So
it better be.
There'll be 3 of us. So yeah, I love this episode. So the beginning we get it's really cool. You get this trial, or Perry has Enos on the stand, and he's going after him real hard. And I should have known something was up, because his hair is like perfect. He's in this really nice suit. He's dressed in a way that he has not dressed the entire series, and he's just going after him. And then it's almost 5 minutes. It's a good chunk of time. And then it's revealed that it was sort of a fantasy. It was him working through what he wants to do on the stand.
Yeah, I wasn't sure at first if it was what was happening or if it was like a flashback. You know what I'm saying? Like they were the night before we were talking about this. And then when Drake was sitting there and he was talking to Drake, he was like, yeah, I wasn't really all that rattled. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah. And Berger is there. Was it Hamilton Berger? Is that his name? It's such a I love that name.
Hamburger burglar.
Yeah. He's in the original series, he's the DA. And he's the junior DA here, and so he's, hoping that the DA will become a mayor or whatever, so that he can slide into that slot. And so he's helping Perry Mason on this case. And he basically tells him, I love the whole nod to the original series with no one confesses on the stand.
Well, that part to me, it was funny because it took me a second to realize what was going on. Because when Hamilton like stood up in the courtroom was like, nobody confesses on, and he just kept saying it, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, but it was great when he, like you said, they showed that that was what he was working through in his head, like how he was trying to do it. But it was it was funny that after that you got Hamilton helping him, being like, hey, without 100% proof and without all the dots connected, you cannot put him up there. You can't have any you know conjecture or hearsay or whatever other legal terms they would use. But it's a they he didn't have all of his ducks in a row to be able to call him up there.
There's a line where it's not in that scene. It's a little later where Mason says, "It's not about the truth; it's about what you can prove." And which is unfortunately, yeah, that's the reality. The truth isn't as important as what you can prove, and that's torturing him. It's killing him. He has multiple points in this episode where he flips out on the people close to him. He has outbursts. He's frustrated with the way the system is built.
And I think that that's important because he even said it, later in the episode. He was talking about how he wanted vengeance. He wanted, he was out for blood, but he realized he's on the side of the law now. He's trying to. That's his role has shifted. Throughout this season, he was, this hard nosed PI who was trying to connect all the dots, and now he's not doing that. He has to be able to, keep his composure. He has to be able to try and rattle the opposing witnesses and keep his stuff together because, Emily throughout this season was looking at him. When he wasn't able to hold it together, she was even closer to cracking. So it's important character growth for Perry.
The big scene at following that is between Della Street and Perry Mason. She wants Emily on the stand. She feels that she needs to have a voice. There's been all these guys that have just been shitting all over her basically, and that she needs to say her give her side of things. And Perry's very much against this, and he gets a little angry about it. But the show, there's a scene towards the end where they're sort of debating whether it was good to put her on the stand or not, and it's sort of like yes it was and no it wasn't. Like neither of them were completely right in it, because she was saying, well, it bought us an extra day and it also helped build your argument to the ending, but then it gave the DA the chance to just assault her brutally. But I like that. Though I like the conflict between Della and Perry, and yet they also they have different opinions on how certain things should be done, but they both want the same. They both have the same goals. They both want justice, and so they're able to work through their problem. She didn't just storm off and say "F you, I quit."
Well, I think that's very important, and not just back then, but conversations should be able to be able to be had. So for them to have a difference of opinions, for them to talk out their opposing opinions and then come to a agreement, I think is very important to just life in general. And I think that it was cool that they showed, although they don't see eye to eye, they still get along great, and they're able to compromise and come to a, they're able to get on the same page, even if they don't agree how they got there.
One thing that hasn't bothered me the whole season, but it did a little bit this episode, only because I knew this was the season finale, was Hazel's gloves. Why does she wear the gloves? I don't know why it bothered me this episode, but I was like, are her hands burned? Or is this just a fashion thing? Or is there a weird anxiety around, her? I don't know.
I'd imagine it was fashion, because if you look at the way she was dancing, I was like, oh my God. It's like, is she having some sort of seizure, or is she watch a couple episodes of Seinfeld and start dancing like Elaine? Like, I didn't know what was going on.
We get the which we already had the reveal, that her and Della are in a relationship. I'm assuming that'll continue going into the second season. Um, it was interesting because that relationship continued, but Perry's with Lupe. It seems over, but I don't know. Maybe not. Yes, he gave her the farm. He went ahead and made the decision to give her the farm, but there almost seemed to be a little bit of finality to that letter he left her. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if they're going to still be to get together or not in
I
the
don't
next
think
season.
so. If you looked at like last episode when he like lost it on her, he felt used.
Mm.
Now, and she even said it. She was like, I'm a businesswoman. You're making more of this than what it was. So he saw it as like this blossoming relationship, and she saw it as, oh, I'm having fun, but I'm really interested in your shit.
Yeah,
So I think that it is closed, but he was just like, "Yep, thank you."
yeah,
And
yeah.
at
It
the
was
end,
a
he made peace with it, but he was
yeah.
just. I don't think that they're romantically linked anymore. Which to me, uh, in season 2, you could bring somebody in because I don't know in the show if he was linked to anybody or if he was married or what. Like I have no idea. Um, but I think that leaves it open to where something like that could happen, or that could be a conflict, or his ex-wife or something. There's a lot of ways to tie in sub stories to that since they didn't work out.
Yeah. His style. So I pointed out at the beginning of this in that sort of fantasy version of his courtroom trial, he had like his hair was perfect, he had the perfect suit and everything. And then you cut to what his normal look is. But when he does his closing argument, it's almost a hybrid. I don't know if you notice this. His hair is pretty close to that fantasy version.
He just didn't
His
have as nice a suit.
his suit was just not as nice. It was sort of like a hybrid of what he envisions himself as and what he really is. And I props to the director, to the whole team of even visually telling this story and paying attention to those little details. He has this vision in his mind of what he looks like, and then there's the reality, and then he tries to get as close as possible to that that fantasy, if you will, in that closing argument section, which was an amazing sequence, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
think that, like you said, there's a lot of foreshadowing and character growth for all the characters. I didn't. We talked about how different characters are. We're curious to see what they'll do next season, but because of how much they grew this season, that's the only reason I'm even curious. I've watched a lot of shows where you basically cling on to like one or two characters, and you want to see what happens with them, but you don't really give a shit about anybody else. This show has been quite different. Like I want to know what happens with all of the characters, even the ones I don't like. Like I still want to see, going forward, what's going to happen with them because of the way that they built the characters.
We get after the closing arguments, we have the juries trying to figure out what it is they're going to do, and days pass, and it's a mistrial. The jury has was unable to come to a agreement, and we learn two major things. We learn that Pete was paying off one of the jurors, uh, and at that same time, we learned that there were two jurors that Mason's closing arguments worked on. And so you sort of had this weird moment where it's like, yeah, he was going to go the extra mile and pay off somebody, but at the same time, no, Mason's closing comments worked on two other jurors, so you didn't even need to pay anybody off. It was going to work.
Well, yeah, I think that was a very interesting. Ouch! Dog scratched shit out of me.
Which one?
McGruff, he's just laying there.
McGruff.
But yeah, I think that his closing arguments. I don't know why I said it like that. his closing arguments, uh, were able to sway a couple of the people. Also, when you watch the different testimony, when they had Emily Dotson up on the stand, as Perry's talking to her and you see her getting upset, you saw a couple of the jurors start to. I don't know if they necessarily believed it or not, but they were at least compassionate towards what she was feeling. So I think even leading up to that point or that end, he was already swaying a couple of the people.
Pete, I think, feels like he doesn't have a place anymore with Perry. I think he feels a little bad that he's paying somebody off. I think he just this whole case really sort of soured their relationship a little bit for multiple reasons, and as a result, he decided he was going to leave and join Berger, join his crew, and work for the DA, the junior DA, which I'm assuming will become the DA, which is cool because I was concerned they were going to kill him off. They didn't kill him off, but they made him move to the other team, which is cool because going forward in season 2, if Berger does become the DA, then that means Perry and Berger will be arguing against each other. They'll be on the opposite sides of the cases, and to have Pete now on the other side, I think that sets up a lot of interesting story.
Well, yeah, and I don't know necessarily that they'll have to be on opposite sides, depending on what the case is or whatever. He may still look for him for legal advice if it's, this person against this person. But if it does become, the state versus, Pete knowing how Perry operates, not just the bribery or, trying to go make sure that everything works out in his favor, but he knows him as a person. So he'll be able to kind of, mitigate some of those things, or maybe get, a certain person on the stand because he knows how Perry operates. However, he doesn't necessarily know how Drake operates, which him and Perry don't operate the same. So that's another, dynamic that I'm looking forward to as well.
Speaking of, Paul Drake quits the force and officially joins Mason's team as their detective. His wife comes back home. They have their child. He's got his family life. He's got his new career, and all that's laid out and set up, completely set up for season 2.
I thought that was a great scene. I loved when he went in there and he was like, "You've been gone for 5 days." He's like, "Well, I had some sick days." Yeah. And he just threw the money down and gave him the badge and the gun back. So I thought that was very meaningful because it showed that he wasn't willing to be bought. So this was my thing. I wasn't 100% sure whether or not Pete was paying off the juror or that was Perry wanting to pay off the juror, because they weren't 100% clear on
They did. I agree with you.
But I think they did that on purpose, though, because if you look at like Drake, if he wasn't willing to take a bribe from his
he would not have been willing.
He wouldn't do that.
No.
So that's what I'm saying. So now does that raise a little bit of uncertainty of whether or not Drake and Perry will be on the same page? So that's why I was saying where there's a lot of things that they left open for season 2 that I thought were pretty awesome, that they kind of, like we said, there's certain shows I watch where I'm actually excited about the next season. And this one, I'm actually looking forward to seeing how the characters are going to grow, interact, and everything. So I think that this was a good way to set that up.
And this is a big statement from me, I'm as excited about season 2 of Perry Mason as I am the next season of Westworld. And I love Westworld. I'm excited. I'm legitimately. I can't wait until we get a date on when we're gonna get it. So Emily's story gets interesting. You get the mistrial, so she's sort of let off. It's clear that the DA doesn't have a case. They say they're gonna retry, or probably not. she goes to visit Alice's mother, and she takes the child. She takes new Charlie, which is obviously not Charlie. And she comes to a moment of not caring that it's not Charlie. You know, she just wants to be a mother, I think. That's my interpretation. You can tell me what you felt about that. But she joins the church and she props this child up, says that it is Charlie, and that's the path she's on going forward. I think my guess is that she wants to be a mother, and this is a way to do that.
That's exactly how I felt. Like she knew it wasn't Charlie. She didn't call the baby Charlie. She didn't say, "Oh, look at my boy Charlie." Like she never did any of those things. She just wanted a baby. And to me, showing what happened with mother, whatever her name was, Mother Dickhead.
It's like Bird or some shit. I can't remember.
I hated her. She was one of the characters I hated throughout the season, and it only got worse as the season progressed. But
yeah,
which, like I've said before, if you can make me hate you as a character, that doesn't mean necessarily that you're a bad character. It actually, to me, shows how good of an actor / actress you are, that I'm able to have negative feelings towards you. But you know, basically, like you said, they turned her baby being reborn into the new sideshow, which also kind of showed me that she was the one pulling the strings with Alice, because everything she was doing is what Alice was turning into there prior to her skedaddling.
Skedaddling. Well, that was funny. Skedaddling. I don't know if I've ever heard you say that.
I don't know. Keep you on your toes.
I like that. I want to. We need to do a podcast and call it the Skedaddle Podcast. If you're listening and you want that, we can make that happen. Put it in the comments below that you want the Skedaddle Podcast. Where was I? Damn it. Lost my note. Okay. So that was Emily. So last week I said that I would be pissed off, and I meant it, and I thought they were going there if Innes didn't get any justice. I remember I made a whole deal out of it last week in the episode 7 review, which if you've not heard, you can go check out. I said, yeah, there's got to be some kind of justice with Innes. He did all these horrible things. There's got to be something. And you said there's a chance that there won't be, that it could be carried over, or it could just, be like, hey, the world sucks, and sometimes bad guys get off.
Well, and I thought it was going to head that way because
it felt that way.
When Berger had, what's his name, Pete on the stand, like they're trying to shake the church down and stuff, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Definitely in the last 10 minutes or so, I felt that, that there would be no justice. And then we got our justice, and it was sweet, and it was wonderful. And the showrunners knew enough to stretch it out. You know what I mean? Like it could have been a lot quicker. They could have just shot him in the back of the head or whatever. But no, they drowned his ass slowly, and it was Holcomb who did it with was it Howard, one of the mob guys, and it was wonderful. And basically, my assumption was Innes was involved in too much shit, and he knew too much shit, and they probably figured that at some point, especially with the pressure on the church and everything that was coming from Burgers, that it would eventually lead to him. And
it would also take Holcomb down with them.
Exactly.
If he ended up going down,
several people.
Holcomb was going to go down with them. Yeah.
And so they figured, no, we got to clip him. Simple as that. He's got to go. And boy, did he. So
I think back then it would be easy to make drowning look like an accident.
Yeah, I'm sure they just threw his ass like in the ocean.
Yeah.
And when he would have had no. They were just holding him, so I don't think he would have had any broken bones. He would have had no strangulation. It would have simply been a drowning. You're right. So that when that moment happened, I smiled and I said, "Damn, it's they were giving me everything I wanted." As the show, as those last 10 minutes were ticking by, the show was giving me, all the things that I wanted it to.
Yeah, Enos getting his, but it does show that although I was happy he got his, and that they were showing that, prior at the beginning of the season, we're talking about how all the cops are crooked. And
Well,
that
yeah.
was Drake's big thing, was he was, everybody's crooked. This is the police. This is what they do. To show that Holcomb was, instead of going down, he was going to take him out so that way he didn't join him. And I thought that was telling about how crooked the police were at that time.
We get a wonderful scene, which we've sort of talked around it with Mason getting, his new office. It's EB's office, and Drake there in a nice ass suit, and Della's there, and they're hanging out, and they got a customer or a client, waiting on them, and it's all the setup for him being Perry Mason, the lawyer, the defense attorney. And we get a wonderful exchange where she's basically laying out, which I thought was sort of cool, that she was going to take night classes. She's going to become a lawyer, and it's going to be Mason and Street. That's going to be the law firm.
Well, I thought it was cool though. Also, prior to that, when they were standing out in front of the courthouse, and him and the DA were going back and forth, and the DA was kind of not keeping his cool.
That was a great scene. Yes.
But he was, she's innocent. He was talking shit to everybody, talking about how the DA did an awful job, was yelling at Holcomb and stuff. But when Della answered, and they were like, "Who's this?" And he's like, "This is my associate."
Yeah.
And to me, that is, in legal, like the legal field, that's a big deal, because they don't refer to, their paralegals as associates. They don't, so for him to refer to her as his associate, I think was a big deal just from the jump.
I love when the DA he did flip out at one point at one of the reporters, because they were like, "Will losing this case, will this affect your mayoral run?" And he's just like, "I didn't lose the case; it was a mistrial. Are you, effing stupid, blah blah blah." And he snapped so hard on that guy. I laughed out loud during that moment. That was a great scene too, and it reminded me of a scene from, I don't know, 2 or 3 episodes back, where it was sort of them talking to the press. It would cut back and forth from EB doing it and the DA, and just sort of that performance you basically have to do, to the press.
Yeah, I thought it was cool because and like you said, there was foreshadowing to it where the DA and EB were doing it. They were talking to all the reporters. They were at the barbershop. They were, all the reporters were basically following them. I thought, just prior to that too, I thought it was cool that when the judge was talking about it being a deadlock, he's telling all the reporters to sit still, and like 4 of them sprinted out because they wanted their newspaper to be the first to report it. So I just thought it was cool that it showed how news traveled differently back then, and those fuckers were sprinting. It was like, "Stop!" And that dude just ran through like 7 people and straight out the doors.
I never looked it up, and I should have. I kept saying, "Who the hell?" The judge. I was like, "What actor? What is he in?" I was like, "Oh, he's the dude from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids." He was the neighbor, dad. And it kept bugging me. I was like, I know this dude from something, like from my youth. But yeah, that's what he was.
God damn.
Yeah, there you go. So,
speaking of youth, I wasn't born in 1972, but we kept talking about Double Jeopardy. Like they were going to retry her. Double Jeopardy didn't exist until 1972.
No shit. Oh, you looked that up?
I just looked it up. Yeah. Right. So I was like, that's Double Jeopardy. How are they going to retry her for the same case when... Now, they could have retried her because she wasn't found guilty or innocent. So I don't know how that applies because it was a mistrial.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know if that would be considered that or not. So that could have not mattered in 1973. I don't know. But Double Jeopardy started in 1972. So...
we get a wonderful final sequence where Mason tracks down Alice. She's changed her look. She's working in a diner. She's, I guess you could say, she's in hiding, starting over, new life. And they have a beautiful little exchange about faith and, just life and loneliness and both these are two individuals that have trauma. Remember, they haven't addressed it in several episodes really, but Perry, his wartime situation really did affect him in a major way. Obviously, we know the things that she went through. So these are two people that are, that are going through a lot of stuff, and they're hurting, and they just have a wonderful little moment. And I'm so happy that there was a split second where I thought they were going to kiss and it was going to be something like that, but it didn't call for it because it was not about that, you know. It was
Yeah.
not about them coming together and being a thing. It was about two lonely people who've been through shit, and they both can acknowledge that they're in the same mind. They're in the same boat basically.
Well, and I thought that was kind of cool too, because we were just talking about love interests. It's something that in a was it last episode or the one before? I don't remember, where you got attention where I was just like, oh my god, are they gonna do it? Like, are they gonna be a thing? But they ended up not. But their chemistry was really good. Like those two just together.
There's definitely seems to be an attraction. Yeah.
And them talking to each other, they are able to, and I think that's a relationship must have for me personally anyway, is to be able to kind of go back and forth with your significant other, being able to have a conversation and also kind of the playful banter and stuff like that. So for them to be able to go back and forth, kind of talk shit to each other and laugh about it. But here at the end, it wasn't them talking shit, it was them reflecting. And I thought that was important too. We were talking about character building. It showed how Alice finally came to terms with how fucked up her mom was. Not necessarily came to terms with it, but realized what her mom was doing and how her mom was basically using her, and separated herself from that.
There's one mystery that they don't answer, they don't solve, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. He does question where's Charlie's body. And he alludes to, was it something supernatural? Was it something wild? How the hell did you get that body out of there? And it was an interesting line. It was an interesting conversation. I love how she basically says, it's like you're looking for faith, but you don't have faith. And yet she, with all the horrible things she's gone through, she still sort of has her faith. So, the show never comes right out and says, is faith good? Is faith bad? It doesn't declare anything, but, people have their views, their beliefs, and these two people have different views and beliefs.
I think it was important too that he didn't shit on her belief structure and she wasn't trying to convince him.
Yeah.
But they were talking about, like you said, I don't know that she knew the answer to that, because I think that her mom.
I still think the mother did it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not 100% sure that she knew. Now, I think that she has faith that, that God is behind her, and that, he was the one showing her the way. But that didn't mean that she believed that Charlie was going to be resurrected either. So I think after she said that, a lot of the things that she said, she seemed to have an issue with. But like I said, seeing what the mom was doing with Emily kind of showed me that the mom was this giant charlatan,
Yes.
clinging to anything to make a buck. And she used Alice for a long time, and then Alice finally was like, fuck you, and dipped out. And then she found her new patsy. She found Emily, who was, because she has a kid now, was willing, and she didn't have anything else. By the end of this episode, yes, she was not found guilty, I guess. She wasn't really innocent. She wasn't declared innocent, but she wasn't guilty either and going to jail. But she didn't really have anything. You know, she lost her spouse, her boyfriend who was using her. She didn't have a job, and now she has this kid that she wants. I think that this was her way of making ends meet, which is sad because mother is just going to use that, and that kind of bummed me out a little bit. Kind of like The Wire, where not all the endings were
Yes.
happy endings,
God.
and that's
No.
how I felt with that. Like it bummed me out a little bit. I was like, damn.
Yeah, I would say, well, obviously outside of Venice's ending, that was the saddest because it. How do I say this? I wasn't happy for Emily's being where she was. I was glad that she has a child. She has this child that she can raise and love and care for. But yeah, being stuck to that church and everything that bothered me a little bit. I feel more relief for Alice because Alice is literally in a position where she can set her own path now.
But I don't know necessarily that she was still connected to that church, because when she went out to do her own thing again, I don't know if those were some of the acolytes or whatever that went with her, or if she basically had to start over from scratch. I don't know. There were
I
some
think they
people
were
who bought
starting
it.
from scratch
Yeah, I think there were
because
some people who bought it and believed that that was the reincarnation of Charlie
yeah,
Dodds, or I don't know.
well, because it was a much smaller group. They were doing the tent stuff, and then he shows the flyer, which is like they're doing a tour through the South. So I think it's not nearly what it. They're not making the money that Alice was pulling in.
No, they had to start over.
Yeah, and then we get the symbolic sequence of Mason pulling out the little string and letting it blow into the air, basically letting go, uh, of all the shit that had come with the case, and looking at where he was before the case and where he's at after the case. He's grown so much as a character, as a person, and he's in a much better place uh, by the ending credits. And how beautiful was it for the ending credits to be, just a remix of the original theme song? I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, uh, after you had mentioned that to me, I looked it up because I wasn't a huge fan of the show, which is unfortunate. I probably would get into it now because, I like crime shows, I like mysteries and stuff. So it's not something that I would be opposed to watching. But when you said that, I was like, well, let me check. Not that you weren't telling the truth, but I just wanted to see what it was. And I was like, oh shit, it is.
Yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, I think we went through just about every major part of this episode. I thought it was a hell of a season finale, a great setup for a second season. Uh, yeah, they did everything they needed to do. Um, any other thoughts?
Well, the only thing I said, like right before we started recording, I think that they filmed a couple extra minutes of footage just in case they got a second season. Because if they wouldn't have got a second season, if you cut out basically um, there's like the two scenes where it was him and Della and Paul Drake being in there accepting a new client, you could have just not did that. It wouldn't have mattered to had for that. Um, I think that showing Pete going to work for the DA was important because that's, kind of closing up. It shows you that there's going to be closure for the church case. I think also the end conversation with Alice was super important, but the scene where they were, haggling for money and doing that, had they left that scene out, so 3 to 4 minutes off, it would have closed without having to leave open for another season. It would have done a great job of just closing out this season. So I think that they filmed probably a couple extra minutes just in case. And because they got picked up for a second season before this ended, all the other episodes were like 58 minutes or 55 minutes, and this one was like just over an hour. So I think that they just aired the whole episode because they knew season 2 was coming.
Yeah. Can't wait for that. Not sure what their timetable is going to be. If it's going to be like Westworld, which decides to take years between seasons. I don't know.
It's like a Japanese manga or something, or some anime.
It's like, yeah, see you in 3 years. Yeah, I don't know, but it's nice to know that there is a season coming, and like I said, lots of new stuff coming to HBO, anyways, including Lovecraft Country, which we will be reviewing just like we're reviewing this now next Sunday night. So, as I said, Lovecraft Country runs up 10 weeks, so we'll be doing for the next 10 weeks. We'll be continuing our HBO on Sunday nights. As I said, also we have our Kurt Russell-a-thon running all August long, and then we're hammering out the details for what we're going to be doing in September and October. Still working on that.
Steve Buscemi-a-thon.
There's a lot of he did
I know.
so many
He's been in
damn
so
movies.
many movies. We do Airheads.
I love Airheads. Yeah. Brandon Fraser.
I'm down for that too. Shit. I've been watching Doom Patrol and
the whatever it was. Oh yeah, it's pretty late in the video. Although I've been checking the analytics, you guys have been watching a lot longer. Some of you've been finishing our videos. We appreciate that. So if you're still listening and you've not subscribed, please do so. Trying to hit that 100 subscribers by September. And what else? Oh, The Boys. We'll be doing The Boys on Fridays starting on
I think it's the 4th.
Yes, it is the 4th. And that will run, I think, 5 weeks. I think it's like 5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, it's 8 episodes, but they're airing the first clump of episodes together or whatever.
Exactly. So, well, I guess that's it. I guess we go now.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.